What you know about rolling down in the deep? When your brain goes numb, you can call a man a freeze. When these people talk too much, put that shit in slow motion, yeah. I feel like an astronaut in the ocean, yeah. What you know about rolling down in the deep? When your brain goes numb, you can call a man a freeze. When these people talk too much, put that shit in slow motion, yeah. I feel like an astronaut. She says that I'm cool. I'm like, yeah, that's true. I believe in G-O-D. Don't believe in T-H-O-T. She keep playing me down. I'm a player for fun. Don't really know my mental. Let me give you the...
Hi, this is John Cullen. Welcome to another episode. Hypothetically speaking, the Web of Deception. And I'm joined once again by Jason Goodman. Jason, this is our 16th episode of Web of Deception.
Yeah. It's become a popular show, John. This was a great idea that you had to kind of go back through all the stuff that's gone on over the past 7 years. I mean, we might be coming up on 8 years because I kind of started Crowdsource the Truth before I met George Webb and got into this Web of Deception. I think you're going to be blown away by what we're going to talk about tonight because a lot of people don't know this stuff, and I'm not really sure if I've ever discussed it. I mean, people know each of these individuals, but I don't know if people are aware of the relationship between them. And there's things that I've discovered, John, that I think some of these individuals don't even know themselves.
Well, we have to be careful what we talk about here on YouTube. So we're only going to spend about 25 minutes here on YouTube and just sort of scratching the surface a bit. But you have some really revelatory observations that we're going to dig into when we go to the patron-only portion of the show. And that's where we can speak a little bit more freely. Here, we have to be careful what we say for a number of different reasons. So for people that want to join us after this 25-minute segment and come over to your patron portion, how do they support your work? How can they support Crowdsource the Truth and all the stuff you're doing?
Really, one of the best ways to do it is on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth. Odyssey is not controlled by any kind of like big tech, medium tech. You know, obviously, we're not doing anything outside the context of the law, and all of these platforms need to deal with banks. So we're not doing anything illegal, we're not doing anything tortious, but of course, YouTube and some of these other things have adopted all kinds of crazy policies that have nothing to do with the law. So we've got odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. And of course, we're always simulcasting the Web of Deception on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen and patreon.com/IamJohnCullen. People can also see sponsor-exclusive episodes of John Cullen Investigates on there. So right now is an excellent time for people to sponsor John. It's Easter. Happy Easter, John.
Indeed, indeed. Today is Easter Sunday. And it's one of the reasons why I thought it would be relevant to come back to the Julian Assange story, because at the beginning of the Web of Deception series, I think it was episode number 3, the title was Julian Assange, but really the episode was more about your trip to England with Trish, the thumb drive, and then you meeting with the chief operating officer from Wikileaks, and so that it was more that that part of the story,
right?
And that was really early on in the whole George Webb saga, and so over the course of the last week or 10 days or so, in the news, so we're recording this show Sunday, March 31st, 2024, and sometime in the last week or 10 days or so, there has been talk about revisiting, is Julian Assange going to be extradited to the United States, or are we going to put an end to this? And so that had been in the news, and then a freighter collided with a bridge, and the SWAT team invaded P. Diddy's house, and everybody between those two stories, everybody forgot all about what was going on with Julian Assange again. So,
Yeah.
given that that had been in the news and they're reconsidering, are we going to extradite him? Are we going to set him free? What's going to happen here? I thought it was important to come back to this because it's kind of the very early stages of your whole George Webb and the rest of these players. That it kind of started here with the whole thumb drive thing and Julian Assange, and we never really got into. And this is kind of the thing I really hope we do get into when we get to the patron only portion. Is there was an interview that Julian Assange did. I think it was with a guy from the Netherlands or somewhere. He's got some sort of a Dutchy type of accent, and they're talking about the leaks and the emails and whatever. And you've made some observations about that, and you've said, you're not certain. Yeah, that's it. That's the one. So
We'll run this during the sponsor exclusive portion, but people have seen this.
All right, but your observations about it are different. I don't want to get us a copyright strike. So
right, good point.
I still hear it. So we're going to take a look at that, and I want to hear your assessment. We'll hear from our patrons in the live chat and see what they think. But there's a whole lot to this story, and then in the thumbnail, there's another character. It's almost like a surprise. Can you tell us more about who the it's like, sometimes you watch a movie and you're like, hey, what's Bruce Willis doing in the movie? He doesn't he's not in that. Nobody knew he was here. So what's this guy? Who is this in the thumbnail? That's not Julian Assange, not Seth Rich. And who is he and why is he in the thumbnail? If you don't mind, explain to the audience if you don't mind.
This is going to be another one of these episodes where I think you may be in the minority not knowing who this is. This is John Mark Dougan. And John is a friend of the show. He's been on the show many times. What we're going to do tonight on the sponsor exclusive segment is we're going to look at my very first interview with John Mark Dougan. He is currently living in Moscow. And the thing is, John Mark Dougan, he's a super interesting guy. He's a U.S. Marine. He was a Palm Beach County Sheriff's deputy. And you know what else was going down in Palm Beach County, right? That is where everybody's least favorite, well, perhaps now it'll be second least favorite pedophile, was hanging out, Jeffrey Epstein. And it's interesting how all this stuff is coming together, because if people are following me on Twitter at JG_CSTT, I've begun a sort of parody comic series here, Where's Diddy? I don't know if people realize I actually worked for Diddy when he was Puff Daddy, multimedia system design, installed the computers at Daddy's house studio. Still owes me $5,000. I don't think I'm ever going to get it, but I don't think he's around. And we've got this image here of Jeffrey Epstein on the island with Diddy maybe coming to visit. We got Ghislaine driving the submarine, but John Mark Dougan is basically a cop from Florida who started a website called pbsotalk.org or .com, I think .org. And what it is it was an anonymous whistleblower site. I think it was a precursor to WikiLeaks, or it was certainly the same kind of thing as WikiLeaks. And this is, American ex-cop goes to Ukraine on twisted mission. Wait, no, that's not the article I wanted. What happened was John Mark Dougan, he got ran out of town, basically. They were trying to kill him because, here we go, the saga of Bad Wolf, a fugitive American cop, his Russian allies, and a DNC hoax. So, John Mark Dougan was right at the center of all this, and in ways that, like I said, I think even he doesn't realize. I actually had a phone conversation with John Mark Dougan about this within the last year. And there were things that he said to me. That phone call, we don't have. That was just me calling him up, and I want to get him back for an interview about that. But we're going to play my first interview with him. And I asked him certain things in this phone call a few months ago about our first interview that he didn't even remember. So it's incredibly valuable that we have this interview with him from 2018 where he's talking about things that happened. Basically, to answer your initial question, the reason why John Mark Dougan is featured in the thumbnail tonight is because I first interviewed him on the basis of the fact that he said that he believes he met Seth Rich, and I went and visited the park where he met him. And we're going to talk in detail about the circumstances under which he met him and why Seth Rich wanted to meet him, what it has to do with WikiLeaks. And we're going to get into this. If people have been following WikiLeaks, if people have been following Seth Rich, if people have been following John Mark Dougan, you're going to definitely hear things on the show tonight that people have not spoken about, you haven't thought about, and you definitely haven't heard before.
Pretty wild. So John Mark Dougan believes that he met Seth Rich in a park. Seth Rich reached out to him. I think I remember you telling me that part of the story, but I didn't connect it to this level. And so they met in person, and then the story takes off. And somehow George Webb ends up connected to you, introduces Trish and this whole notion of a thumb drive with a whole bunch of unique content. And next thing you know, you're on your way to England.
But wait a minute. That thumb drive was supposedly the information that Seth Rich had given to WikiLeaks. That's what I was told. So this was before I ever met John Mark Dougan. And just to cover a little more ground on him, he's very confident that he met Seth Rich. He didn't know that he was Seth Rich at the time. But what happened was John Mark Dougan became pretty well known for, it's a crazy story because he had to disguise himself and escape to Russia. And it involved going to the mall and putting on a wig. And it's an absolutely outrageous story, but it's true. And a lot of people were like, this guy is full of it. And, the thing you got to understand about John Mark Dougan, like I said, he was a Marine, he was a cop. Now, more recently, we saw that other article that said he's trying to vindicate Putin. I don't think he was trying to vindicate Putin, but he did go to Ukraine. And John Mark Dougan does stuff that I would never do and has capabilities that I do not have. When he went to Ukraine, he didn't take a train, he didn't take a bus, he didn't drive his own car. Do you know how he got there?
No.
He wrote an MRAP with the Russian military inside a military vehicle. So, if you're driving into a war in a military vehicle, he's embedded with the Russian army. That's pretty dangerous stuff that I would never do. So the notion that he would do all this stuff and charter a plane to Canada, I don't remember all the details of that story. People can look it up and read it. But he basically went to the mall, somehow got to Canada, chartered a plane, had a wig, had to fake a heart attack, and he made it to Russia. And he's been granted political asylum in Russia. He's been living there for like 7 or 8 years.
Now, didn't he also go into Ukraine and record footage from one of the biolabs that had been blown up by the Russians?
Yes. Not only that, he has personally arranged rescue missions to exfiltrate people from Ukraine. First, a Burisma whistleblower. Now, some people might question what I'm saying. I am recounting what John Mark Dougan has told us. I have no reason to distrust him. And look, I've never met the guy, but I've done a lot of interviews with him. I've known him over several years. I have never discovered evidence that causes me to disbelieve anything that he says, despite the fantastic nature of some of it. And people are saying, yes, John Mark Dougan, he wrote a book. And people should get that book. I think it's called Bad Wolf or something like that. Let's look it up here. It's called Betrayal of Truth, a former Marine. Oh, no, he's got a second book. So he's written 2 books, it seems. Let's see what he's got here.
Right.
Yeah. So he's got Bad Wolf, the true story of an American cop, 75 reviews and 4.5 stars. So this is the one about his story of leaving the United States, the true story of an American cop's retaliation against a corrupt system of justice and politics, forcing him to seek political asylum in Russia. Now, again, the aspects of his own story that I believe he hasn't put together, I want to lay it out here, and then we're going to bring it home in the sponsor exclusive segment. But remember, he started this pbsotalk.org website. And the purpose was for deputies within the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office to report corruption. There was a whole big scandal going on where the deputies and some people working for the sheriff's office were, sort of like stealing drugs out of the evidence room and doing deals with prostitutes.
Sounds like Bad Boys with Martin Lawrence and Will Smith, right?
Yes. Corrupt cops is the allegation, and Dugan had the dirt on them and was releasing it through, different cops were able to anonymously blow the whistle through this website. So obviously the Palm Beach County Sheriff's deputies that were involved in the alleged criminal activity, they didn't like that, and they wanted to shut Dugan down. And when it really got crazy is there was that detective who was investigating Epstein. And he died. Decorated former.
I didn't hear that.
Here we go.
Tell us more about that. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So this was a guy
Palm Beach County officer investigating Epstein, and next thing you know, he's dead.
Well, sort of. Let's see it. It says, decorated former Palm Beach detective who led Epstein investigation dies at 50. This is him. So he solved murders, obtained confessions, worked overtime, fell in love, and brought coworkers to lunch, and he still had time to crack jokes. Joseph Ricari, a former Palm Beach detective who had a knack for making others smile, who tackled the island's largest and most important investigations, and who cared deeply for his family and friends, died Friday after a brief illness. In my opinion, an excellent police officer has to be a good person, said former Palm Beach Police Chief Michael Reiter. But anyway, this guy died,
but he didn't die on the job. He didn't die on the job.
In illness.
Former police officer, right? But former. So in other words, he. It's not like he was working the Epstein case.
He was.
And
he was a lead detective in many major investigations, including high-profile solicitation of minor case against billionaire Jeffrey Epstein. And the thing that's relevant about this detective with regard to John Mark Dougan is that he had uploaded videos from the DVD recorder at Jeffrey Epstein's Palm Beach County mansion to pbsotalk.org. And John Mark Dougan was hosting the server that those were on.
And that's when didn't they storm his house or something? They pulled a raid on him too and stole all his equipment, right? There you go. Yeah, this is a thing, by the way. This is getting stuck in my craw. This the storming with a search warrant thing. I'm wondering how constitutional it is. I mean, we've talked about the Fourth Amendment, securing your person and and your things, right? And this past week, I commented to you. I said, "What the hell? They brought a bunch of Bearcats to P. Diddy's house and blew through the gate, and they ripped the gate off the." It's like ripped off the thing. I mean, it's like it's going to need serious repairs to collect evidence. I mean, they don't know if he's guilty.
Wait a minute. The thing with the Diddy raid that's very important is that civil suit, that action from Rodney Jones described how Diddy had an armory in the house.
Doesn't matter.
Well, they suspect there's guns there.
An allegation.
But they did have a warrant for that on the basis of evidence of the firsthand testimony. And also remember, Diddy has been arrested several times for guns. So when you hear that there's an armory, I'm not saying if it's legal or not. I'm just explaining why they did it. But forget about Diddy for a minute. I want you, John, if you can see the screen share, and I spent a lot of, oh crap, is it not on there? Can you see it?
No, I see over your shoulder. Okay. I see over your shoulder on the TV.
You don't see it on there? Oh my God. You had to tell me that, dude. That was the holy crap. Hang
Well,
on
I
a
see
second.
over your shoulder, though.
No,
I can
no,
see
no.
over your-
We need you to see this.
Okay, now
Can
I
you see
see
it now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
spent a long time trying. That was the reason for the delay. I wanted you to be
Okay,
able to
yeah,
see it.
yeah.
So
I
look
see
at
it, I
this.
see it.
This is very important here. Okay. So look at all these articles. So here's ex-cop claims he has sex tape of Andrew filmed by Epstein stashed away. This is from January 13th, 2024.
Yeah, I was just going to say this is
Ex-Florida cop
8 weeks
accuses
ago.
FBI of covering up Prince Andrew's role in Jeffrey Epstein scandal. So this is all very high-level articles. Ex-cop MI6 fears leaked secrets of Prince Andrew's friendship with Jeffrey Epstein, breaks his silence. They're thinking damning evidence of Prince Andrew could be in Russian hands. So, these guys think that John Mark Dougan is a Russian spy. They want to kill him.
I know the feeling. Believe me, I know the feeling. In fact, it's one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this, because we did a number of times. We did the Whistleblower Hall of Fame, where we looked at Julian Assange and all the other whistleblowers. And one of the things I said is, as much as he has revealed, his body count, I think, is only 13, because it's the gunship attack in Iraq where the journalists were killed, the other people were killed. But that's really the extent of the bodies as far as dead people. Everything else, Epstein, emails, Podesta, Hillary, that kind of stuff. But there's no real other dead bodies other than the gunship helicopter thing. Whereas the stuff that we've been exposing has, I think, broader implications. And so as concerned as they were about Julian Assange 7 or 9 years ago, to the extent that Mike Pompeo and Hillary wanted to figure out if they could drone him, I tend to believe he's kind of yesterday's news and you're the problem now. And they are trying, dude, they've got like an army of legal eagles constantly suing you.
That's true.
Wrapping you up in court, right? They've got judges that just keep it's the same judge, just keep showing up. It's like, wow, it's like winning bingo 9 times in a row.
Only three on that same judge.
So it's become somewhat clear now over the course of time, right? If this was only a
Dude, we've got Diddy trolls now. We've got Diddy social engineers in the comments. Codingphase.com is some sort of lunkhead moron who says Little Rod is not reliable. This is a Diddy troll who's injecting.
So hang on. Whether or not the guy's reliable, not reliable, that's not the point. My point is, what they did to Diddy is kind of the same thing they did to Roger Stone, and we're not necessarily Roger Stone fans. No. They came
Diddy
to Roger Stone
is an arch criminal. You're never going to see Diddy again. Everything coming out about the videos.
You're not listening to what I'm saying. You're not listening to what I'm saying. What they did at Diddy's house and what they did at Roger Stone's house was the same thing.
True.
They show up with guns.
With Diddy. No probable cause with Roger Stone.
What about...
Roger Stone's never been arrested for a gun crime. Diddy has been arrested for gun crimes. Nobody submitted a lawsuit with photo evidence that said...
What about Rudy Giuliani? They showed up at his house
that
with
was
a gun.
bad. Well, we'll get into this later. This is a separate conversation for a Diddy show.
But they did, but hang on. But but they did this to Julian Assange. They came into that embassy and they carried him out like an animal. I think there were 6 or 7 guys, and they carried him out of there. And so to me, it's this storming. It's the show of overwhelming force.
Right.
When someone has not yet been convicted of a crime. So it's one thing if somebody's been convicted of a crime and we're trying to find the guy and he's armed and dangerous. But if somebody's not yet been convicted of a crime, like Roger Stone, and they show up at his house at 5 a.m. with AR-15s drawn, right? We heard a story 2-3 weeks ago. They showed up at a guy's house and shot him in the head. The guy from the Arkansas airport thing. Now, I'm sure he was guilty, or they never would have shot him in the head. But just the idea that they're showing up with guns drawn, ready to kill you, seems a bit over the top. Do you remember back when I was a kid, there was a show called FBI.
I didn't know you when you were a kid.
All right. When I was a kid, there was a show called FBI. It probably was not on TV when you were a kid.
Yeah,
and
George's brother loves it.
And there was the two guys, and they had the tie, and I forget who the actors were, but one of them was like a famous actor. I think it was the guy that goes on to be the colonel in MASH. He's the guy from the show FBI. Who was the colonel in MASH after that
Alan
one
Alda?
guy? No, Alan Alda's boss. The older guy who runs the whole
I think
MASH.
you're a few years older than me. I was watching Taxi.
Right, well, that guy. All right, well, that guy who heads the MASH unit was
Sherman
in the show.
Potter?
Yeah. I think, and he was in the FBI show. And these guys would show up, and they, they're in their suit and ties, and they knock on the door, and yes, ma'am, we need to ask you a couple of questions.
This is a conversation. We're getting off the topic here, and now we've got people coming in defending Diddy. Forget about Diddy. This is about John Mark Dougan. This is about Julian Assange and Seth Rich. So let's just stay on that topic. I don't want to distract with all this other stuff. So we got to go to the sponsor.
Took his hard drive, right? They took his hard drive.
John Mark Dougan, they absolutely slammed. And they took his hard drives, and it became clear to him that his life was in danger, so he left for Russia. But what we need to do now is we need to make our way over to the sponsor exclusive segment so we can get into all this video stuff and go into the details here. So people are going to want to join us right now on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and Subscribestar and Patreon/crowdsourcethetruth. This is a really important show. And like I said, if people are interested in Diddy, Julian Assange, Seth Rich, Dugan, your mind is going to be blown by this.
I'm excited. I mean, this
ready?
whole thing, Dugan in January is wild. So, yeah, this is big. We'll see you guys over at Patreon, Subscribestar, Odyssey. Thanks for joining Webb of Deception.
What you know about rolling down in the deep? When your brain goes numb, you can call a man a freeze. When these people talk too much, put that shit in slow motion. Yeah, I feel like an astronaut in the ocean. What you know about rolling down in the deep? When your brain goes numb, you can call a man a freeze. When these people talk too much, put that shit in slow motion. Yeah, I feel like an astronaut. She says that I'm cool. I'm like, yeah, that's true. I believe in G.O.D. Don't believe in P.H.O.D. She keep playing me down. I'ma play her for fun. You don't really know my mental. Let me give you the picture like stencil. Falling down in the drought. No flow rain wasn't pouring down. See, that pain was all around. See, my mom was kinda loud. Didn't know which way to turn. Flow was cool, but I still felt burned. Energy up, people feel my surge. I'ma kill everything like this bird. What you know about